Max Verstappen did not just complain about the engine rules. He sent Formula One a warning that should scare every team on the grid. He said continuing like this is not mentally viable. And when the most dominant driver of his generation says the problem is no longer just speed, but the mental cost of driving these cars, the sport has crossed into dangerous territory. Because this is not about Max being angry after one bad weekend. It is not about Red Bull losing its advantage. It is not even about a champion refusing to adapt. It is about a car philosophy built around a 50-50 power split, half combustion, half electric, forcing drivers deeper into energy management, battery strategy, and a style of racing Verstappen believes feels less natural. And now the entire paddock is staring at one brutal possibility. If Formula One does not move towards 60-40 for 2027, giving more control back to the driver, Max Verstappen may decide the mental price is too high. That would not just damage Red Bull. It would expose the International Automobile Federation, shake the championship, and raise the question no one in Formula One wants to answer. Has the sport become so advanced that its greatest driver no longer enjoys driving it? Because if Max walks away, it will not be because he could not win. It will be because Formula One changed into something he could no longer accept. Subscribe to the channel. At first, Formula One tried to put this into a familiar box. A world champion is frustrated. His car is difficult. His team is no longer controlling the season. The results are not matching the standards Red Bull created during its most dominant years. That kind of story is easy to understand. Every great team eventually faces a moment where the advantage shrinks, the rivals get closer, and the driver starts asking harder questions. It happens in every era. The sport moves, the rules change, and even the strongest machines stop looking invincible. But this is not just another Red Bull performance problem. That is the first mistake. Because if Verstappen was only angry about being slower, the solution would be simple. Painful, but simple. Give him more grip. Give him more straight-line speed. Reduce the weight. Calm the rear of the car. Make the operating window wider. Bring upgrades that turn frustration back into confidence. Red Bull knows how to chase performance. That is not new. The real danger is that Verstappen is not only questioning the car underneath him. He is questioning the type of Formula One that is being built around him. And that changes the entire story. Because a difficult car can be improved. A difficult regulation philosophy is much harder to escape. That is why his words about the situation not being mentally viable landed so heavily. Those words do not sound like normal frustration. They sound like a driver separating himself emotionally from the future of the sport. Not physically, not yet, but mentally. And once that begins, everything becomes more dangerous. Formula One drivers live under pressure that most people never see. The public sees the race, the podium, the radio message, the helmet, the celebration, the mistake. But behind that is a life built around constant sacrifice. The travel never stops. The media never stops. The physical training never stops. The simulator work never stops. The pressure inside the garage never stops. And for a driver like Verstappen, the expectation never stops either. He is not judged like an ordinary driver. He is judged against the version of himself that dominated. The version that made winning look routine. The version that could turn a small opening into a race-ending advantage. The version that made everyone else feel like they were already chasing before the first corner. That is a brutal standard to live under. But Verstappen has accepted that pressure for years because the reward was worth it. The reward was the feeling of racing at the edge. The feeling of controlling a car that others could not fully tame. The feeling of attacking a corner with absolute trust and knowing the machine would answer. That feeling is the reason the sacrifice makes sense. But now, Verstappen appears to be asking whether that feeling is disappearing. And that is where the engine rules become the center of the crisis. The current direction has pushed Formula One toward a heavier reliance on electric power and energy management. The 50-50 power split sounds balanced from a distance. Half combustion, half electric. It sounds clean. It sounds modern. It sounds like a sensible future for a sport trying to evolve. But a Formula One car is not driven from a distance. It is driven through the body. Through the hands, through the feet, through the back, through tiny sensations most people would never notice, but a driver reads instantly. A little movement from the rear, a slight delay in throttle response, a change in power delivery, a different feeling under braking, a moment where the car gives confidence or quietly takes it away. For Verstappen, those details are not background noise. They are the language of speed. And if that language becomes unclear, the entire experience changes. That is why a rule about engine balance can become a mental problem. Because when the car depends so heavily on electric deployment, battery state, and energy recovery, the driver is not only thinking about the corner in front of him. He is thinking about the system beneath him. How much power is available? When that power will arrive? How long it will last? Whether using it now will punish him later? Whether the car will feel the same at the end of the straight as it did at the start? That may sound like a technical challenge, but at racing speed, it becomes an emotional burden. Imagine trying to sprint as fast as you can, but your shoes keep changing how much grip they give you. Sometimes they launch you forward. Sometimes they feel heavier. Sometimes they respond instantly. Sometimes they wait just long enough to make you hesitate. You can still run. You can still compete. But you are no longer running freely. And for Verstappen, that freedom is everything. His greatness has always been built around directness. He feels the limit, trusts it, and stays there longer than almost anyone else. He does not want to spend a lap wondering whether the car will give him the same response twice. He wants the car to be difficult, yes, but honest. There is a difference. A difficult car challenges the driver. A dishonest car drains him. And that is why this issue has become mental. Because if every lap feels like a negotiation with systems, energy states, and unpredictable responses, then the driver's mind is never free to attack completely. It is always calculating, protecting, second-guessing, adjusting. For some drivers, that may be part of the modern challenge. For Verstappen, it appears to feel like the wrong kind of challenge. Not harder in a way he respects. Harder in a way that takes the joy out of the act itself. And that is far more serious than a bad result. A bad result can make a champion angry. A bad feeling can make him leave. That is the hidden line in this entire story. Verstappen has not built this warning around fear of competition. He has said before that he can accept not dominating. He can accept being lower than he wants if that is the reality of the car. He knows no team wins forever, and no driver gets a perfect machine every season. But accepting defeat is not the same as accepting disconnection. That is the point Formula One has to understand. If he finishes 7th or 8th in a car that still feels like something he wants to master, the frustration is sporting. It can be processed. It can become motivation. But if he finishes there in a car that feels unnatural, while the future promises even more of the same, the frustration becomes existential. Why continue? Why give everything? Why spend another year inside a system that no longer gives back the feeling that made the sport worth it? Those are dangerous questions for any driver. For Verstappen, they are even more dangerous because he does not seem trapped by Formula One. Some drivers need the paddock in a way that goes beyond racing. They need the spotlight, the ceremony, the cameras, the identity that comes with being a Formula One driver. For them, leaving would feel like losing the center of their life. Verstappen has always felt different. He loves racing, but he does not appear obsessed with the theater around it. He has other projects, other passions, other ways to compete. He has already achieved the kind of legacy most drivers never touch. That matters. Because when someone like that says the mental cost may be too high, the threat becomes believable. Not guaranteed, but believable. And in Formula One, believable is enough to create panic. Red Bull understands this better than anyone. The team can talk about development, about progress, about understanding the RB22, about finding answers race by race. But underneath every technical discussion is a human question. Can they keep Max convinced? Not just contracted. Convinced. There is a huge difference. A contract can keep a driver on paper. Belief keeps him committed in the car. And Verstappen's belief is being tested from two sides at once. From one side, Red Bull has to fix the present. The car has shown weaknesses that have forced him to fight harder than expected. Extra weight, rear instability, a narrow operating window, a lack of confidence when conditions move away from the car's comfort zone. From the other side, the International Automobile Federation has to fix the future. The rules have to move in a direction that does not make Verstappen feel like Formula One is becoming less about the driver and more about managing a machine. That is the squeeze. Red Bull must give him a car he can trust now. Formula One must give him a future he can believe in later. If either side fails, the retirement threat becomes stronger. And that is why the proposed 60-40 change is so important. More combustion power, less electric dominance. A balance that could make the car feel more direct, more responsive, more connected to the driver's inputs. To casual fans, it sounds like a small technical correction. To Verstappen, it may be the difference between staying and walking away. Because the 60-40 idea sends a message. It says the sport is listening. It says the driver's feeling still matters. It says the future can be advanced without becoming distant. It says Formula One can evolve without removing the raw connection that makes a driver feel alive in the cockpit. But that change is not automatic. And that is where the tension grows. Some manufacturers may not want the rules moved. Some teams may feel they have already invested in the current direction. Some rivals may see no reason to help solve a problem that hurts Red Bull and Verstappen. Formula One is competitive even in its politics. Nobody gives away advantage for free. So the sport is stuck in a brutal conflict. If it changes the rules, some will say it bent under pressure from Verstappen. If it does not change the rules, it may push Verstappen closer to the exit. There is no clean outcome. Only risk. And that risk is now public. That is what makes this story so powerful. A technical regulation has become an emotional referendum on the future of Formula One. Fans who never cared about power splits are suddenly asking why 50-50 matters. They are asking why 60-40 could change everything. They are asking why a driver as strong as Verstappen would describe the current direction as mentally impossible to continue with. And once the public asks those questions, the pressure multiplies. Because Formula One cannot hide behind complexity forever. At its core, the sport still has to answer something simple. Does the driver still feel like the center of the machine? If the answer is yes, the future can work. If the answer is no, the sport has a problem bigger than Red Bull, bigger than one season, and bigger than one regulation meeting. That is why this first stage of the story matters so much. It reveals that Verstappen's warning is not just anger. It is not just politics. It is not just a champion trying to protect his advantage. It is a signal that the emotional foundation of racing may be under threat. Because when a driver loses speed, he fights. When a driver loses trust, he hesitates. But when a driver loses joy, he starts looking for the exit. And that is exactly what Formula One must fear now. Not that Max Verstappen cannot handle a difficult car. Not that he cannot survive a hard season. Not that he cannot race without dominating. The fear is that he may decide the current engine rules, the mental burden, and the future direction of the sport no longer offer enough of what made him love Formula One in the first place. And once that thought enters a driver's mind, it does not disappear easily. It follows him into every briefing, every qualifying lap, every race start, every long flight, every difficult debrief, every political delay, every moment where the car feels less like a race car, and more like a system he has to endure. That is why the tension is rising. Because this is not only about what Verstappen said. It is about what those words reveal. A driver can complain and still be fully committed. But when he says he cannot continue mentally, the question changes. Now the paddock is no longer asking whether Red Bull can make the car faster. It is asking whether Formula One can make the future worth staying for.